إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. Yesterday's class we started talking about the importance of making dua in the month of Ramadan. Dua is important in the life of a Muslim. There's no day that goes by except that you have to make dua. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always legislates for His slaves that which is most beneficial for them. And the things that we need the most are the things that we are provided with the most. The thing that we need in terms of human beings, that we need on a constant basis, physically, is what? We need to be able to breathe. You don't need to eat all the time, you don't need to drink all the time, but you need to be able to breathe all the time. And so air is abundant. You need to be able to drink. Water is abundant. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides us with the things that we need the most. And in terms of dua, the greatest dua is the dua of Surah Al-Fatiha. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ اهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ. So asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide you to the straight path and seeking His aid in doing that, that is the greatest dua. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it incumbent upon us to make this dua. So dua is something that does not leave the life of a Muslim. But in the month of Ramadan, we should be increasing in dua the same way that we increase in other good deeds in the month of Ramadan, the same way that our Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam would increase in his generosity in the month of Ramadan and other good deeds. So if we look at the ayat, we mentioned this, the ayat that deal with Surah Al-Baqarah, the ayat that deal with Ramadan in the Quran, which is only one place in the Quran, that's Surah Al-Baqarah. In the middle of those ayat, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the obligation of fasting, and He talks about the Eid as well, the conclusion of your fast, then there's an ayat that talks about dua. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes back to talk about some of the things that are permissible for you to do during the night of your fasting and so forth. So in the middle of these ahkam or these rulings that deal with fasting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about dua as an indication that in the month of Ramadan we should be striving to make more dua. And it's interesting that Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, when she asked the Prophet ﷺ about Laylatul Qadr, we know Laylatul Qadr is the greatest night of the year. And it's a night in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made superior to doing the works of more than 1,000 months. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, when she went to the Prophet ﷺ and said, O Messenger of Allah, if I know or if we know that it is Laylatul Qadr, she didn't say, what should we do? She said, what should we say? The Prophet ﷺ said, Quli, Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa, fa'fu anna. Oh Allah, you are al-afu, you are the one who pardons. You love pardoning, so pardon us. Like the point is here that Ramadan has always been recognized by the Muslims as a time to increase in dua. Time to increase in dua, as well as the recitation of the Quran, which is the best dhikr. So we started yesterday with a very important dua. It's a comprehensive dua, and we started memorizing it yesterday. And this dua is the dua that Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu said that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to make. It's collected by Muslim. He said that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to say, Allahumma aslih li dini alladhi huwa ismatu amri. And that's the part we explained yesterday. Allahumma aslih li dini alladhi huwa ismatu amri. And everybody should be memorizing this. Not just let it go. Don't just come hear it. No, memorize it. make this Ramadan be the Ramadan that you memorize this dua and a few others that you incorporate on your daily routine, inshallah. All right? So, Allahumma aslih li dini, that means, oh Allah, rectify for me my deen. Fix my deen for me. Make it right. And we talked about yesterday the importance of our deen. That your deen is your most valuable commodity. That if you have deen and you have nothing else, then you are ghani, walhamdulillah. And if you have everything else and you don't have deen, you don't have any connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have no way to prioritize what it is that you should be doing in life, you have no even clue of what you're living for, then you have nothing. Even if you have the wealth of, the richest people in the world, but you don't have any deen, you have no connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have nothing. And because your deen is such a valuable commodity, like with anything else, it needs to be protected. And this is why you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to rectify your deen for you, to give you sincerity in all that you do, to make the deeds that you do make them conform to the sunnah of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and his teachings, so that you are living a life that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahumma aslih li dini alladhi huwa ismatu amri. There are 4 other requests that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam makes in this dua. We're going to cover 2 of them today and then 2 tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala. The next 2 are wa aslih li dunyaya allati fiha ma'ashi. وَأَصْلِحْ لِي دُنْيَايَ الَّتِي فِيهَا مَعَاشِي. And rectify for me my life, rectify for me my worldly affairs, in which is my life. And you have to live in this dunya. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the Quran, وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. And don't forget your portion of this life. We all need things from the worldly affairs in order to practice our religion. And in order to get to the masjid, for a lot of people, you need to have some type of transportation. In order to get to Hajj, you definitely have to have a means of transportation. In order to fast, you need to be able to have iftar and suhoor. I need to get you through the day. And you need to, in order to live life in general as human beings, we have a need for istiqnas, which is one of the reasons why we're called nas. We have that need to be soulless, to find comfort in the presence of other human beings. And so, hence the idea of getting married, of having children. These are natural. These are natural feelings that most people have. And this is part of your life. This is part of your dunya. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, here we're asking Him to make all of these things right for us, to set them right, to rectify them. If there's anything that is not right about them, to fix them. And so this dua is critical because it encompasses every aspect of life. It's almost like the dua that you make between Rukn al-Yamani and al-Hajar al-Aswad. What's the dua that the Prophet ﷺ used to make? رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنًا. Allah, give us the good of this life. So here, you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you that which is good, but also rectify that part of your life that may not be correct. Things that have been broken, if you will. You're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to fix them. So the dua is, وَأَصْلِحْ لِي دُنْيَايَ الَّتِي فِيهَا مَعَاشِي. And rectify for me my worldly affairs, my world in which I live, in which is my livelihood. And so here, as some of the scholars of hadith mentioned, that you are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for al-hayat al-tayyibah. فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran. We will give him a good life. A good life is one in which you are content, in which you have peace of mind, What does contentment mean? That what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, you find it to be sufficient. You're content with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for you, the portion of this life that He has given you. Not like some people who always look to those who are above them. And our Prophet ﷺ prohibited us from that. So you may find a man who has a wife who is pleasing to him, but maybe she has some things that he doesn't like about her. Subhanallah, he may say something to her like, well, so-and-so's wife doesn't do that. And so-and-so's wife does it like this, because he's not content with what he has, and he's looking at what someone else has. And our Prophet ﷺ prohibited us from that. Because if you look at those who are above you, then it is more likely that you will be ungrateful for the favors that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. And so here you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do what? To give you the good in this life and to fix it for you. The third line is وَأَصْلِحْ لِآخِرَةِ الَّتِي إِلَيْهَا مَعَادِي. وَأَصْلِحْ لِآخِرَةِ الَّتِي إِلَيْهَا مَعَادِي. And rectify for me my hereafter, to which is my return. طيب إخوان. In this life, when we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to rectify it for us, are we not asking for provisions? Yes, we're asking for provisions because you need provisions in order to live this life properly. طيب, what are the provisions of the hereafter? What's the currency of the hereafter? In this, for example, the currency in this country is what? You have to go change your money. Reals. Reals, halalas, okay. And in England, what is it? Pounds. In America, the currency is dollars. طيب, what's the currency in the hereafter? Yeah. Hasanat and sayyat. Good deeds and bad deeds. That's the currency of the hereafter. And this is why our Prophet ﷺ actually, in a hadith, he said, "Man kanat li akhihi madlama," and whoever has done some wrong to his brother, then let him seek his forgiveness today, or make it right today, before it is not about a dirham or dinar. In other words, before you get to the hereafter, you can fix things in this life. You can fix it with your brother, with money, a lot of times. Or you said something wrong about him and you can go fix that or whatever. But in the hereafter, it's not about dinar and dirham. There's no more gold and silver in the hereafter. The currency of the hereafter is good deeds and bad deeds. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, أَتَدْرُونَ مَنَ الْمُفْلِسِ مِنْ أُمَّتِي. Do you know who the bankrupt one is from my ummah? Bankrupt, you would think about somebody that doesn't have what? Any money. He has no currency. Right? So they said, oh, Masjid of Allah, he's the one without any dirham and dinar. The Prophet ﷺ said, no, the bankrupt one from my ummah is the one who comes on Yawm al-Qiyamati with what? Salah and zakat. Shuf. He has good deeds. He brings this. This is his currency on Yawm al-Qiyamah. He's done these good deeds and he's made hajj. He says, however, شتم هذا وضرب هذا, he insulted this one and he hit this one, وسفك دماء هذا, and he spilled the blood of that one. And so they're going to do what? They are going to start taking from his good deeds. So he comes on Yawm al-Qiyamah, he has money. I mean, not money, but he has this currency. He has a load of good deeds. But because of the bad things that he's done, because of the people that he has oppressed in this life, this one will take from him and that one will take from him, and all he's doing now is withdrawal. No deposits. Everything is withdrawal. Taking until he has nothing left. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ called him a muflis. He's bankrupt. Because the currency of Yawm al-Qiyamah is good deeds and bad deeds. And all of his good deeds were taken, so now he's what? He's bankrupt. And worse than that, if he does not have enough good deeds to go around to the people that he's oppressed, then they will start depositing their bad deeds into his account. And now not only is he bankrupt, but he's in debt. Not only doesn't he have anything, any hasanat, but now he's taking the sayyi'at, or the evil deeds of other people because of what he used to do to them in this life. So when you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to rectify for you your hereafter, you're asking Allah azza wa jal to increase for you your hasanat, your good deeds, the deeds that you do in this life. So though it may, yes, you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Jannah, you're asking for him for a spacious grave, you're asking him for all of those things that we look for in the hereafter, for him to keep you away from being punished. But that goes back to what? What you do in this life. So in effect, you are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you in doing good deeds. All right. So let's get this down. The first part of the hadith, as we took yesterday, Allahumma aslih li dini alladhi huwa ismatu amri. Oh Allah, rectify for me my deen, which is the safeguard of all of my affairs. Everything in life focuses or circles, your deen is the center of your life. And if you don't have that focus, this is what you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. To help you in terms of prioritizing what you do in this life, so such that your deed becomes the safeguard and the protection of everything else that you do in life. And again, as we mentioned yesterday, and I want to hammer this point home. The dua that the Prophet ﷺ used to make, the ad'iyah, the prophetic supplications, there's nothing like it. Yes, we want to make dua from our hearts. We want to make sure that the dua that we are making is from our hearts, no doubt about that. And so sometimes you don't just want to say something in Arabic and you don't know what you're saying, because that's not likely to be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you're not really praying to him. You don't even know what you're saying. You don't know what you're asking for, so how can you expect to receive it? However, a lot of times we just make up dua, whatever dua comes out. Oh Allah, give me this. Oh Allah, make this right. Oh Allah. But if we there's nobody who was better at calling upon Allah than our Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. So that's why we should memorize the du'as that he used to make and incorporate them in our lives. And that's why we want to memorize them now, like as in today. So you're going to repeat after me, inshallah. Just make sure we get the first part down. Allahumma aslih li. Allahumma aslih li dini. What's dini mean? My deen, my religion. Alladhi huwa ismatu amri. Alladhi huwa ismatu amri. Okay, so that part is, oh Allah. If you don't memorize in Arabic, that's okay. Memorize the English and then go back and memorize it in Arabic. So you're saying, oh Allah, rectify for me my deen, my religion, which is the safeguard or the protection of all of my affairs. Right. Next. Wa aslih li. Wa aslih li. It's easy, inshallah. Everybody. Wa aslih li. Dunyaya. Okay, so dunya, right? We all know dunya, and then there's a ya at the end because you're saying my dunya, right? Dunyaya. Okay. Wa aslih li dunyaya. Allati fiha ma'ashi. Okay, ma'ashi means my livelihood or my living. So you're saying, oh Allah, rectify for me my dunya in which I live, in which is my livelihood. Right, and then the last line that we'll take today, wa aslih li. So this is repetitive, right? Allahumma aslih li, wa aslih li, wa aslih li. Okay, so this part should be easy. Wa aslih li. Okay, from islah, right? Have you heard the word islah? Many of us have. To make something right. When you make islah, fa aslihu bayna akhawaykum, right? rectify between your brothers. Something has gone wrong. When you make islah, you make it right. You make it right. So you're asking Allah to make right for you your hereafter. وَأَصْلِحْ لِي آخِرَتِي آخِرَتِي. Let me hear you say it. آخِرَتِي. وَأَصْلِحْ لِي آخِرَتِي الَّتِي إِلَيْهَا مَعَادِي. My return. My return. So these are the three lines that we want to memorize by the end of today. The first one is, oh Allah, rectify for me my religion, which is the safeguard of all of my affairs, وَأَصْلِحْ لِي, and rectify for me my dunya, which is my livelihood, and rectify for me my hereafter, to which is my return. And that hadith is collected by Al-Imam Muslim, and we're going to cover the last two lines tomorrow, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Right. We're going to move on to chapter 7, inshallah. Chapter 7, صح؟ طيب نقرأ الباب إن شاء الله.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم اغفر لنا ولشيخنا وللسامعين. قال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى: باب من الشرك لبس الحلقة والخيط.
لبس
حلقة. لبس الحلقة.
سكون على الميم.
لبس الحلقة والحيط ونحوهما لرفع البلاء ودفعه. The author said, chapter heading, it is from shirk to wear a ring or a rope to remove or prevent any harm. وقوله تعالى.
طيب, stop there. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. Okay, so we're going to cover chapter 7 in Kitab al-Tawheed. And it's very important that we understand this chapter. This chapter is the beginning of where the author is going to start detailing some of the things that are contradictory to Tawheed. So we've been talking about Tawheed, singling out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in worship, and that this is the reason that we were created. This is our purpose here on earth, is that we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, that we make sure that our hearts are attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and that we worship Him with love, limitless love, and with fear and with hope. And both fear and hope have limits. If you exceed those limits, then you will go beyond what you are supposed to do in terms of your hope and fear in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If somebody hopes too much in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that a problem? Allah is Ghafoor, He's Rahim, He's Tawwab, He's Wadud. All of these things are to inspire hope in us. He is Rahman, He is Rahim. They're to inspire hope. But can we hope in Allah too much? Is that possible? Yes, it is possible. It's possible that you put so much hope, or that you hope in Allah so much, that you ta'man min makrillah, which is a major sin, is that you feel safe and secure from the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is a major sin, because that's going to lead to a lot of other things. Like, can you fear Allah too much? We always say, taqillah, Allah shadidun intiqam. Right? He is severe in punishment, subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know that He is Jabbar, Qahhar. But can we fear Allah too much? Yes. You can fear Allah so much that you ta'as min rawhillah, that you despair from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. And that's a sin. That's a major sin in Islam, that you despair from Allah's mercy. So there are limits to fear and hope. Can you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala too much? No. There's no such thing as loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala too much. And that is why when we talk about what they call arkan al-ibadah, right? The essential elements of your worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or what they may translate as pillars of worship in general, there are three: love and fear and hope. And Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala and other scholars of Islam have said that it's like a bird. The head of that bird, that's the love. That's what propels you, that's what guides you. And the balance is through fear and hope. And you have to keep that balance. of fear and hope. But the love is the essence of your worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right. So we talked about that. We talked about that tawheed. And that love that you have for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that makes you stand in front of Him subhanahu wa ta'ala broken and with sincerity, in seeking His reward, and not wanting to do anything that displeases Him because you love Him, not just because you fear Him. You can love someone so much, you can love your parents so much, you don't want to do anything that disappoints them. Not because you're scared of them, but because you love them. And so your love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what should propel your worship of Him Jalla Jalal. And it is part of your worship of Him. So, but what is important to note here is that a lot of times we don't recognize where we fall short in our worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until we look at the opposite of at-tawheed, until we look at the opposite of singling out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our worship. And so we look at the opposite, which is called what? Shirk. وَبِضِدِّهَا تَتَمَيَّزُ الْأَشْيَاءُ. And by its opposites, things become clear. When you know the opposite of something, then it becomes all the more clear to you. And that is why we talked about earlier. We a lot of times we don't recognize our blessings until we either one, lose them, la qaddar Allah, or until you see someone else who's struggling with the blessing that you already have. So the fact that we sit up here and we breathe effortlessly without thinking about it is something that we don't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough for every breath that you take. But for those people who are on ventilators and who cannot breathe without the aid of a machine, then for them, they recognize the ni'mah of breathing, because they've experienced what? The opposite. And so likewise, this is why the author here, for the next number of chapters, he's going to deal with issues related to اشرك, which is the opposite of tawheed, so that we can clearly see, okay, this is what tawheed is. And that's shirk. Not from his own ijtihad, or not because he's making up something, but because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said so in the Quran, or because our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam has said so, and it has been established in his sunnah. And so here, the author says, from shirk, a form of shirk is to wear a ring or a string. For what purpose? Because wearing a ring, that's not shirk. Just wearing a string or a bracelet or a necklace or something, no, that's not shirk. He said for what? دفعه البلاء أو رفعه. To repel some type of evil, that is, to prevent evil from coming, or رفعه, or to counteract some calamity that has already, or affliction that has already befallen someone. So there are two things here. Number one is that they wear it for what purpose? As a protection. Nothing's wrong with them, but they wear it to protect them. Or what's the other one? Or something actually is afflicting them. They're suffering from some kind of illness or something like that. And so they wear it to do what? To counteract the effects of that illness. All right. Next step. What kind of shirk is this? Remember we said that shirk is two types. Major and minor. The major shirk takes one outside of the fold of Islam. And minor shirk is worse than major sins. So it's sinful. Like, which kind of shirk is this? Somebody wears a ring. You might see somebody wearing a ring. And tomorrow we're going to talk about, and maybe even today actually, we'll talk about the amulets that some people wear. And they vary from nation to nation, from people to people. You may see someone with a 4-leaf clover or a horseshoe over the door of their house. What are they doing that for? For protection. Like, or they think it brings them good luck or whatever. Like, what kind of shirk is this? If somebody does that, can you say, oh, he's a mushrik? It's not a Muslim. I'm asking. Like, No. This is what is known as a shirk al-asghar. It is a minor form of shirk. It can become major shirk. However, we'll talk about the details of that, inshallah. The main, or the base rule, if you will, is that it is minor shirk. And why is that? And Ikhwan, I really want you to hone in and understand this. Because a lot of people do not get this issue right. They don't understand. And for that reason, there's a disconnect in the chapters that are to follow. Okay. If you take a step back, and we talked about at-tawheed. And we talked about tawheed also being two categories. Tawheed al-ma'rifah wal-ithbat, that is to affirm for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala His names and His attributes and His actions. And we talked about tawheed al-qasd wal-talab or tawheed al-ibadah, which is to single out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your worship of Him. Alright? Because tawheed means to single out something. So when we single out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His names, in His attributes, in His actions, then that means that we cannot attribute those things to anyone else. So if we single out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the creator, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of the universe. If someone comes and says, no, Zeus is the creator of the heavens and the earth, then we're going to call that what? That's called shirk. Why? Because he attributed something that is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's action, and that we have to single out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in terms of our belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the sole creator, he attributed that to someone else. Okay? And many of the Christians, even the Christians who distinguish between, early Christians, who distinguish between the Father and the Son, right? They didn't say that this was one entity. So the Father is God, and the Son is Jesus. They say, many of the early Christians, relatively early, 3rd century, they say that God was the creator, the Father was the creator of the Son, and then the Son created the universe. The Son as in S-O-N, not S-U-N. The Son, Al-Ibn, that He was the creator of the heavens and earth. So they in fact say Jesus, though He is not Almighty God, He is the creator of the heavens and earth, and therefore deserves to be worshipped. And that is shirk. Right? Like, I don't mean to confuse you. I just want you to understand that to attribute creation to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now to not single Him out in His attribute of creation or His name Al-Khaliq, the creator. And go on down the line. Alright? Okay. How does this relate to what we're talking about today? Because we also, as part of our belief in Allah's actions, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of causes and effects. And this part is critical to understand. If you understand this, you're going to understand the next 10 chapters very easily, inshallah. Allah is the creator of causes and effects. And we know some of those causes and effects through our own trials, through our own experiences, practical daily life. You know that if you light a match, then what's going to happen? There's going to be what? Fire. And you know that if you put that fire on a piece of paper like this book right here, it's going to do what? It's going to burn. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the causes and their effects, and we know many of them, again, through experience. There are other causes and effects that we don't know through experience, that we only know because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has informed us in His revelation that these are causes and effects. Correct? So, for example, we know that reading the Mu'awwidhatayn قل أعوذ برب الفلق, قل أعوذ برب الناس, does what? It protects you from what? It protects you from al-ayn, the eye. It protects you from certain, it protects you from harm in general. But we only know this because of what? Because we were informed through revelation. So we have another cause and effect relationship that isn't based on our own trial and error. I know that if I take this and I rip it down, then it's going to go in half and one piece is going to... We know this from cause. Likewise, the same thing we said about fire. Right? Fire does what? It burns. But when Ibrahim, alayhi salam, was thrown into the fire by his people, did it burn him? No. Because Allah Azza wa Jal is the creator of causes and effects. And He said to the fire, Kuni bardan wa salam. Be cool and peaceful for Ibrahim. And so it didn't burn him. Because Allah Azza wa Jal is in control of those things. Right. So, for example, if you were to go to a doctor and you ask the doctor, what are some of the means to live a longer life? What's the doctor going to tell you? The doctor is going to say you need to eat healthy, you need to exercise, you need to get good sleep, you need to avoid, drugs and alcohol and so on. And these are means that lead to a longer life. From what? From trial, from experience. Okay. However, we also know that there's another way to live longer. And that is to do what? Keep good relationship with your relatives. How do we know that? We know that through revelation. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man arada an yunsa'a lahu fi athari wa yubsata lahu fi rizqihi falyasil rahimahu." Whoever wants to live longer and whoever wants his wealth to increase, then let him keep good ties with his family. So if you were to go ask a financial expert, what are some of the causes? How can I make more money? Okay, well, you need to work a little harder, you need to work longer, you need to work overtime, you need to invest your money in this stock, you need to... Okay, these are all what we can call natural causes, or causes that we gain through experience. But then there are other things that we gain through revelation. And we only know through revelation. Is that clear? If we now attribute a cause and effect relationship that is not based on something very clear and apparent, and we attribute that to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it's as if we're saying that there's another creator along with Allah. Now, let's look at the issue of now a person wearing a ring in order to prevent some harm from coming to him. We would say, what is this ring made out of? It's made out of copper or silver or gold or whatever. Is this something known? Is this mineral, silver, this precious metal, is it known to have any healing effect? No, it's not. It's not used for that purpose. Now, if someone said, I want to take these, I want to take certain herbs, vitamins to boost my immune system, to prevent, some type of disease, okay. Because there's a normal cause and effect there. That's something that has been tried and tested over time and is seen, okay, if you take these type of things, helps build your immune system. And knowing inside of yourself and believing firmly that this is all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you may never take any of these things and never get sick, and you may take it every day and still get sick. But you're taking the preventive measures. But a ring, there's nothing that indicates that. Not from your aql, not from your intellect, nor anything from the sharia or revelation that would indicate that. So now, if someone ties a string around their finger or around their neck, or puts a ring on, because they're saying that this is going to prevent some harm from coming to me, this is going to prevent the evil eye, this is going to prevent, and we say, no. Is there something, because this is definitely not based on intellect. There's something some type of hidden element here? Do you have something from the revelation that indicates that? And there's nothing. And this is why this is a form of minor shirk. Because a person who does this is now attributing a cause and effect relationship to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we know that Allah Azza wa Jal himself is the only creator of causes and effects. Is that clear? And we're going to see this, as we look through some of the texts that we're going to cover today, inshallah ta'ala. If we understand this point, that cause and effect relationship or causality, then bi'idhnillah ta'ala, the rest of what we're going to cover today will be quite easy, inshallah ta'ala. In terms of easy to understand. Now.
وقوله تعالى قل أرأيتم ما تدعون من دون الله إن أرادني الله بضر هل هن كاشفات ضره أو أرادني برحمة هل هن ممسكات رحمته قل حسبي الله عليه يتوكل المتوكلون. The author goes on to mention the ayah where Allah says, say, O Muhammad, tell me about that which you worship besides Allah.
And he say to the mushrikun, tell me about those things that you worship besides Allah, or that you call upon, that you invoke besides Allah. Because the mushrikun, right before, in the same ayah, as a matter of fact, in this same ayah, if you go back to Surah Az-Zumar, this same ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَئِنْ سَأَلْتُم مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لَيَقُولُونَ اللَّهُ قُلْ أَفَرَأَيْتُم مَا تَدْعُونَ. So if you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they're going to say, Allah. Allah is the one that created the heavens and the earth. Allah then tells the Prophet ﷺ, then say to them, if you recognize that Allah is the one that created the heavens and the earth, He created you, He created everything that exists, قُلْ أَفَرَأَيْتُم مَا تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. Then say, look to those that you invoke besides Allah. Come in the ayah.
If Allah intends any harm for me, could they remove His harm? Or if Allah intends mercy for me, can they prevent His mercy?
So tell me, these things that you are invoking besides Allah, the one that you recognize as the creator, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted some harm to befall me, could they prevent it? And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted mercy to come to me, and He wanted His bounties to come to me, could they prevent Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from giving me His bounties? No. In other words, you already know the answer. No. Since that is the case, قُلْ حَسْبِيَ اللَّهُ. Allah is sufficient for me. I have no need to invoke these other deities that you are invoking, because they cannot prevent harm from coming to me, nor can they bring me any benefit. فَقُلْ حَسْبِيَ اللَّهُ. Let's say Allah is sufficient for me. Nah. Alayhi. Top jumper. Alayhi. Nah.
So it's sufficient for me is Allah. In Him we put our trust.
In Him, let those who put their trust, put their trust. In Him, let those who want to rely, put their trust in Allah. They're not going to put their trust in anything besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even though this verse was revealed, the Prophet ﷺ was talking to who? He was talking to Muslims in this verse. قُلْ أَفَرَأَيْتُم مَا تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. Do you see with that you are invoking besides Allah? He was talking to mushrikun, shirk and akbar. That is, they were not inside the fold of Islam. But the author is using this verse as a proof to avoid minor shirk. Because why? Because there is I can't think of the way to translate it. There's a common denominator. There's a common denominator. Make sure you come every day. There's a common denominator here, and that is mentioned at the end of the ayah. وَعَلَيْهِ يَتَوَكَّلُ الْمُتَوَكِّلُونَ. Let those who are going to rely on anything put their trust in Allah. So here, what we find is that those who are wearing these rings or necklaces or strings or whatever, their heart becomes attached to what? Their heart becomes attached to the ring. Their heart becomes attached to the string, to the bracelet, to the necklace, or whatever it is that they're wearing. And so there is a degree, the same way we talked about, that they are attributing a cause and effect relationship to a creator other than Allah. And that's shirk in the first category of tawheed, which is a ma'rifah wal ithbat, which is to know and to affirm Allah's oneness. There's also another degree of the heart being attached to other than Allah. To the point that if you told them, no, take that ring off and throw it away. No. They have a belief in the ring. They have a belief in the string that they're wearing around their necks. And they're losing their attachment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a manner that is proportionate to whatever attachment they have put to this thing that they're wearing. So the common denominator here is that there's a lack of tawakkul upon Allah from both those who are mushrikun, as in outside of the fold of Islam, and those who commit minor shirk in Islam. Understand the connection here? So there's that's that common denominator, that aspect of trust. There's also the fact that though if you ask them, does this thing bring you benefit besides Allah? Or can it prevent you harm if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to harm? Even though they're not going to say anything off of their tongues, there is an indication that they believe that this thing has the ability to bring benefit or ward off any harm. Okay? So, if we look at and then we'll move on to the next two hadith, inshallah. The author mentioned one ayah in this chapter. He mentioned two hadith, and there's an athar on Hudayfa radiallahu ta'ala anhu also at the end. Which is also what I like about this book, and I think that it's important, an important reason why we study this book, is that it's Quran, Sunnah. Quran and Sunnah. And that is what we want to understand. These concepts of Iman and Kufr and Tawheed and Shirk and these type of things, these are legislative terminology. This is not something that we needed somebody to come tell us about. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has explained this thoroughly in his book, and the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam also explained it in his Sunnah. So, if we look at the one, and this is also for people who wear amulets, you know, like necklaces with charms on it, except the Quran. Except the Quran, which we'll talk about tomorrow. It's not part of our discussion today. But the Quran is outside of the discussion. That is, some people wear little amulets with Quranic ayat on it or something like that. That has its own ruling, which we'll discuss tomorrow, inshallah. And it should be avoided, honestly. But what we're talking about now is no, people who are wearing things, they don't even know what it says. Or they're wearing a certain kind of ring with some inscription on it. Or going further than that, with some people doing certain societies, like I mentioned before, 4-leaf clovers and rabbit sweats and horseshoes and all types of stuff that people, do. And the one that you see that's very, very common is the hand with the eye, right? Because people think that this is going to ward off the evil eye, which is, subhanAllah, I mean, besides the fact that there's no evidence whatsoever for this in our religion, it's an indication of a person being heavily influenced by the society in which he lives in and less influenced by his own deen. So here, again, just to go back to wrap it up, inshallah. A person who wears this ring, or this string, twine, rope, or whatever it might be, with the belief that this thing, in and of itself, has powers. It has the power to ward off evil. It has the power to protect me. It has the power to counteract some illness that has befallen me. then this is called shirk akbar. This is a major form of shirk. Because the person has put his trust fully into this thing and believes that this thing now has that power. If a person wears it, believing that it is a cause, in other words, they were told by someone that if you do this, if you wear this, Allah will ward off the evil. Allah will protect you from, but you have to wear this ring. Then this is a minor form of shirk, because now they have, again, put that cause and effect relationship, or attributed that cause and effect relationship to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as well as the type of dependence that the heart is going to have on that object. Naam, Shaykh.
Also goes on to mention the hadith where he says, Imran ibn Hussein, may Allah be pleased, has narrated, the Prophet ﷺ once saw a man with a copper ring on his hand and asked him, what is this? The man replied, to overcome al-wahina.
Alright, stop there. Imran ibn Hussein, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, in another narration of this hadith, which is collected in Mustadrak al-Hakim, in this other narration, Imran ibn Hussein mentions that it was him who was wearing the ring. So he has this copper ring on. And the Prophet ﷺ saw him and he said, what's this? Imran ibn Hussein said, min al-wahina. Min al-wahina. Now, there's something to note here linguistically. Al-wahina, which is a specific type of illness, comes from the root wahan, which is to be weak. Right? And so this disease causes weakness. And as the scholars of hadith mentioned, that it was a weakness that was known amongst the Arabs at that particular time to be in this area, the upper arm, shoulder area. And so any weakness that would come to here, they would call it al-wahina. Al-wahina. And some of them believed that it was because of the veins. They didn't know exactly what it was from. And some of the other scholars of hadith say that it wasn't necessarily related to this part of the body. Though most of them say that any weakness throughout the body sometimes is called al-wahina. But in general, this disease, al-wahina, was a type of weakness and illness that caused weakness in the shoulder area and the upper arm. And so Imran ibn Hussein is wearing this ring. And the Prophet ﷺ says, what are you wearing this for? He says, I'm wearing it because of al-wahina, because of this illness. Now.
He said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, remove it, for it can only add to your weakness. Should death overtake you while you are wearing it, you will never succeed. This hadith was reported by Ahmad with a good chain of narrators.
Okay, so he says, the author himself says that it was narrated by Ahmad with a good chain of narrators. And if you'll remember, from the beginning of these lessons, I mentioned that over 60% of the hadith in this book are from Bukhari and Muslim. And that the other 40%, some of them are sahih, that is, they're sound. Some of them are hasan, which is fair and acceptable. And some of them are weak. But the majority of those that are weak, there are what are known as shawahid, or there are other ahadith which testify to the meaning of that particular hadith, which is why they call them shawahid, because they testify to the meaning. And so, this particular hadith, even though the author says that it is related by Ahmad with a good chain of narrators, there are other scholars of hadith that say that this hadith is weak. And just from the angle of academic integrity, I want to throw that out there so that you know there are scholars that say that this hadith is weak. But as you'll see, there are other narrations that support the meaning. So the Prophet ﷺ says here, inza'ha. And even though in English we even though it says remove it, it's sort of like rip it off. Like the Prophet ﷺ is not just saying, oh, take it off. No, it's like get rid of that. Rip it off because it is only going to add to your weakness. What does that mean? It's only going to add to your weakness. It's only going to add to your weakness Because if a person, and think about this, if a person is afflicted with an illness, right? And let's just say the doctor prescribes for them a particular, medicine. They say, take this, and inshallah, 7 to 10 days, you'll be back to normal, you'll be feeling great. Once you start taking that medicine, you stop looking for other remedies because you feel like you've already found the remedy. And if the prescription happens to be wrong, then what's going to happen? Usually you're going to increase in illness because you're taking the wrong remedy and you're not doing anything to actually deal with the illness. And so the Prophet ﷺ here is letting him know this thing is only going to increase your illness. Because you're wearing it, you're not going to seek another means to remedy the situation. Not to mention that it weakens your heart. Because now your heart becomes attached to something when it should be attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah alone. And then the Prophet ﷺ goes on to say, if you die while wearing this thing, then you will not succeed. You will not succeed. In other words, you will not attain salvation. And that needs to be understood in the context of other narrations of the same hadith. Because if a person dies while committing a minor form of shirk, will they achieve salvation? Eventually, yes. Because they have not left the fold of Islam. And every Muslim will eventually achieve salvation. That is, they will be taken out of the fire for those who are purified in the fire. So, to understand this hadith, to look at the other narrations, which mentions if you die believing that it will benefit you, then you will not ever succeed. Then that is closer to the meaning of this hadith, inshallah ta'ala. Which is that if a person dies with that kind of belief, totally believing that the benefit comes from this thing, then that will take them outside of the fold of Islam, as we already mentioned. Nah.
Author goes on to mention, Ahmad also recorded that Uqba ibn Amir narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever wears an amulet, tamima, may Allah not help him in fulfilling his wish.
Stop there. Go back and read that again. Whoever wears an amulet. Uqba ibn Amir is the Sahabi here, radiyallahu anhu.
Whoever wears an amulet, tamima, may Allah not help him in fulfilling his wish.
Okay. Whoever wears a tamima, right? Which is translated as amulet. There's a play on words here that you don't get it in English. Right? مَنْ عَلَّقَ تَمِيمَةً فَلَا أَتَمَّ اللَّهُ لَهُ. Right? In the Arabic, I guess a play on words is the best way I can describe it. But the Prophet ﷺ is using the word tamima and atem, which is tamam. And they called it a tamima, because do you know what tamam means? You might know somebody named Tamim, Tamam. Tamam means to complete something. Right? اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي. And I've completed my favor upon you. So it means to complete something. They used to call it a tamima because they believed that it helped you to complete whatever protection it was that you were looking for. It completely rids you of whatever harm you were facing and these type of things. This is why they called it a tamima. So it doesn't really work in English, right? But the meaning is the same. Whoever allaqa, which here is translated as wears, but you can also say whoever hangs. Whoever hangs an amulet, then may Allah not allow him to, how does it translate?
May Allah not help him in fulfilling his wish.
Yeah, may Allah not allow him to fulfill his wish. May Allah not allow him to complete whatever it was that he was looking for. Okay? And here also, in terms of allaqa, which means to hang something. It can also mean to attach something. And so the scholars say that this means both. Whoever hangs an amulet or whoever attaches his heart to an amulet, then may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not fulfill his wish. Not. And whoever
wears a seashell around his neck, may Allah give him no peace.
Which is the same, honestly, is the same meaning, but in Arabic, because there are two different words that are used for it, the Prophet ﷺ gave us that detail. Wada'a, which is a seashell. But it's used for the same thing. They used it because, wallahu alam, but they believed that it was representative of things that are peaceful, like the waves. You know, so they wear this seashell as a means of bringing them some kind of peace in their lives. Now, so this hadith was this hadith was narrated on the authority of Uqba ibn Amir, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. This particular chain of narrators is not sound. However, there's another narration. No.
In another version, the Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said, whoever wears an amulet has committed shirk.
Right, whoever wears an amulet has committed shirk. The Prophet ﷺ is the one who said, Qad اشرك. Not me, not this Shaykh, not Ibn Taymiyyah, not this one of them. The Prophet ﷺ said that. He's the one who said that whoever wears an amulet, and what did we talk about before? Either two ways. If the person believes that that amulet is itself, in and of itself, it has powers, then this person has committed shirk akbar. In general, people don't wear it for those reasons. People don't wear amulets believing that it has power in and of itself. But they do wear them believing that it is a means of protection. And this is why we said that this is called what? Minor shirk, because now they have attributed a cause and effect relationship to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I believe that the Muslims as a whole want good. They want to be pleased, they want to be, especially in this month of Ramadan, their hearts are closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They want to draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because of that, I believe that this is a good time for us to encourage those who we know that are afflicted with this, because there are many Muslims around the world who are wearing these charms, who are afflicted with this, not because they want to be displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not because they want to go against the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, but simply because they didn't know. And so now we need to let them know. Put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Take that off. Burn it. Nothing's going to happen to you إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ, except for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already written for you. And Allah did not make these things a cause of your protection. He didn't make them a means for your protection. In fact, unfortunately, what has happened is this has become a business for some people. You go to them and you explain to them that you're dealing with certain problems, and they say, okay, come back to me tomorrow. And they make these things and put knots in it and wear this for 1 year, and it will, alleviate you from the, and they get paid for that. And they are using the, naivety, the gullible nature of some of us. The fact that we would put our, husn al-dhan, we have good thoughts about the other Muslims, and you see this person, he's a sheikh or whatever, and because of the good thoughts that a person has about them, they put their hand in their hand and they trust them. And so we need to let them know, no, our Prophet ﷺ said this is shirk. And this particular narration has a story behind it. Uqba ibn Amir, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said that there were 10 people who came to the Prophet ﷺ to do the bay'ah. And the Prophet ﷺ bay'ah tis'atan minhum. And he gave 9 of them the bay'ah. And the 10th one, no, he didn't shake his hand. And so someone said to the Prophet ﷺ, you've given bay'ah, or they've given bay'ah, 9 of them, but the 10th one you didn't shake his hand. And the Prophet ﷺ said, because he is wearing an amulet. And whoever wears an amulet faqad اشرك, then he has committed shirk. And I'm not going to give him the bay'ah. So the man removed it, and then the Prophet ﷺ shook his hand. Now, the last athar.
The author goes on to mention Ibn Abi Hatim reported that Hudayfa, may Allah be pleased with him.
Ibn Abi Hatim was a scholar of hadith. His father was a scholar of hadith, Abu Hatim al-Razi. He was also a scholar of tafsir. And in fact, it is said that if it was not for his tafsir, there would be no tafsir Ibn Kathir. Because tafsir Ibn Kathir relies heavily in terms of narrations on tafsir Ibn Abi Hatim. And only a portion of it has been printed. Now,
Ibn Abi Hatim reported that Hudayfa, may Allah be pleased with him, saw a man with a piece of string.
Who was Hudayfa? He was a scholar in Islam. He was a sahabi, a tabi'i. Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, sahib sid Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He was the one who kept the secret of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. He had a list of what? Of the munafiqeen. He was the one Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu went to and said, am I on the list? La ilaha illallah. Umar radiyallahu anhu. And he feared for himself, he found. Even though he was the greatest of the believers after Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and after the prophets. SubhanAllah. This was Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman. Now,
Hudayfa, may Allah be pleased with him, saw a man with a piece of string tied to his hand due to a fever from which he was suffering. So he cut the string and read the verse, and most of them believe not in Allah except that they join partners with him.
Okay. Alright. So this is the last thing that we covered today, inshallah ta'ala. And this is also something that is very beneficial in terms of giving us an idea of this cause and effect relationship. Hudayfa goes to a man, or he sees a man with a string or some twine, whatever, tied to his finger. Okay. Now, have any of you, if you have a fever, what do you normally do? You normally do, huh? Take some medicine, Panadol, paracetamol, huh? You sure? I've never heard of that. That must be specific to England, huh? Like, in America it's Tylenol or ibuprofen or something like this. Or a person, before those times, a person may take cold, washcloths or something like that, put it on his head, keep changing them. Something that is clear. Is it like a string? What is it? What is me tying a string on my finger going to do for a fever? There's no clear connection there. The only connection is that somebody must believe that there's a cause-effect relationship between this string and the fever. But where are they getting this from? They're not getting it from experience, and they're not getting it from revelation. And so for that reason, they are attributing a cause-effect relationship to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why the general rule in everything that we're going to be studying in the next couple chapters is, whoever believes that something is a cause that Allah has not made a cause has committed minor shirk. Alright? And this is even what Hudayfa calls it here, right? Because he sees the man with the string and he cut it off. And he said, وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. And most of them do not believe in Allah except that they also commit shirk. Right? SubhanAllah. Now, even though this ayah is talking about al-mushrikun, talking about those who are outside of the fold of Islam, and notice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they believe in Allah. Was the belief that they had in Allah enough to bring them into the fold of Islam? No. And that's why we should, again, like we talked about yesterday, it's not enough that you worship Allah. You have to worship Allah alone. and not worship anything else. That's Islam. Islam is not worshiping Allah. All of the mushrikun worshipped Allah. The problem was that they worshipped others along with Allah. And so our Prophet here, Hudayfa radiallahu ta'ala anhu, recited this verse. وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ. This is a Muslim he's talking to. إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ إِلَّا وَهُمْ يُشْرِكُونَ. And so he says, except that they commit shirk. And that shirk may be minor or it may be major. In this case, it was a minor form of shirk. But even the mushrikun, that is the idolaters themselves, they believe in Allah. And that's why it's not enough for us as Muslims. Oh no, it's okay because he believes in Allah. As long as he believes in God, he's okay. No, it's not enough to believe in God. It's not just enough to, it's not enough just to work. It's not enough to worship God. You have to worship Him alone, subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what brings someone into the fold of Islam, and that is what is going to lead eventually to a person's salvation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Like, if there are any questions, because yesterday we didn't have a chance to take questions. If there are any questions, and you can ask them now, inshallah ta'ala. If not, then alhamdulillah. It means, inshallah, I did a good job explaining. Allah. Nah, no, 1 second. Here. Okay, go ahead. Nah. So, doing what with it? Yeah. To protect your luggage. Right. So, again, we're going to deal with this tomorrow. The brother's question is, what if you put like a mushaf in your luggage? Or even just a page from the Quran in your luggage, or you put it in your car, for example, like some people do, to protect the luggage or to protect your car from harm or something like that. Again, we're going to deal with the issues directly related to the Quran tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala, but to give you a quick answer, there's no basis for that. There's no basis for that in Revelation. And it's not something that was the normal practice of, obviously, not the Prophet ﷺ or any of the companions, even though they had that available. They had pages of the Quran. Even before the Quran was compiled in the Mus'haf like we have today, they call it Mus'haf Uthman. Even before that, they had pages of the Quran. They could have done that had it been something that was recommended. Now, like, any questions from online? Subhanallah. No, you don't need to write it down. Just go ahead, say it. Can you make Hajj with your mind or what? I think I understand the question. I'll wrap it up. The questioner states that his father is very old, and his mother is not as old, and she hasn't performed Hajj, and she wants to perform Hajj. But the father said, don't go to Hajj because I can't live without you, basically, right? MashaAllah, it's a beautiful story. So the answer is, you have to look at it from two angles. Number one is that if in fact the father is of the age where the mother is the primary caretaker of him, such that if she left, he would not have someone to take care of him, and he needs someone to take care of him, then she is considered in this case to be ajiz, meaning that she does not have the ability to make Hajj, because she is the sole caretaker of your father, and he needs someone to take care of him. And that is the situation with some of the elderly, where they need someone on a 24-hour basis, and I need to take care of them. So if that's the case, and she's the primary caretaker, and there's no one else that can fulfill that role, then she should stay with your father and take care of him. If it's simply that he loves her so much, and he doesn't want her to go, then her obligation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in other words, he doesn't need her actually to take care of him. He can take care of himself, or someone else can take care of that role for her while she's gone. Then her right to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes precedence over her right to her husband. And that is why even the scholars in the books of fiqh, the fuqaha, they talk about the impermissibility of a husband preventing his wife from performing hajj as long as she has a mahram. And so in this case, she would be the mahram. So as long as she has a mahram, the husband cannot prevent her from making hajjat al-Islam. That is the hajj of Islam, that is the obligatory hajj. Yes, can he prevent her from making a second or third or fourth hajj? That's a different story completely altogether. But the hajj that is an obligation, no one can prevent her, not her father, not her husband, not anybody, can prevent her from making that hajj as long as she has a mahram. And in fact, they say that it is wajib for her to disobey him in this instance, if he is preventing her from making hajj, because she has a duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again though, that is a very general statement, and I'm saying that because I don't want someone to come now and get divorced because of something that they heard here, and they're not taking other things into consideration. That you would need to go to someone in your locality that knows more about your culture, and that could hopefully convince, because this is what we ultimately want, is that there's no conflict of interest. That we want the husband, the father, or whoever to back off of the position that they don't want their wife or daughter to go. We want them to back down, and that usually happens with advice for somebody that fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك. السلام عليكم.